Despite being each other's main rivals, Marvel and DC have never really been on par with each other. Marvel reached a new level of popularity and success in the 2010s, with a cinematic universe defined by limitations. They didn't have the rights to their biggest teams and biggest heroes. On the other hand, in the same decade, DC had no limitations, and their universe failed. It got me thinking, what if it's actually because of the limitations that Marvel succeeded, and what if DC was in the same situation? They would be stripped of their biggest heroes like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and a few others, and make a DC cinematic universe, a good, successful one, out of what was left. Well, this is what I focused on in a previous video, and this video will be part 2 to that. You should probably watch part 1 first before this one, but just in case you don't want to and you want to recap instead, this is what Phase 1 looked like. DC doesn't have the rights to the Trinity, Teen Titans, and a few others. It set up and introduced the Justice League, began the DC one-shots, and laid the groundwork for the overarching plot, which became a bit more clear by the end of the phase: Hal's parallax infection. Make sure to leave a like to let me know you like these videos, subscribe for part 3, and become a member in the Noble tier or above for early access to videos, or the King tier for a special shout out. Thanks to these members for the extra support. Getting into Phase 2, we start with Green Lantern 3, which kicks off 2013 by concluding the trilogy with a different tone and different director. On Quar, the Thunderers have used Sinestro's ring design to utilize the other colors in the emotional spectrum. They created a red ring for another prisoner named Atrocitus, and an orange ring stolen by a prisoner named Larfleeze. Larfleeze stays isolated, but Sinestro and Atrocitus strike an alliance, combining fear and rage to break out and ignite a war. The Guardians receive a vision of the end of the Green Lantern Corps in a coming war, so they call an emergency situation and summon every Lantern to Oa. John and Hal are dispatched on secret missions to recruit other corps. John succeeds in securing the Blue Lanterns, but while Hal tries to recruit the Star Sapphires, he learns on the way there that Sinestro kidnapped Carol Ferris, so that lures Hal away, allowing Atrocitus to sway the Sapphires to his cause. Hal locates Sinestro's base of operations, but when he arrives there, he is defeated by Sinestro and becomes his captor. Atrocitus and the Sapphires then arrive, but the alliance between these corps then start to fracture. Atrocitus grows suspicious of Sinestro's true goals. Sinestro reveals that a fragment of parallax still resides in Hal, explaining how Hal survived in space at the end of Justice League. Sinestro then uses Hal Jordan to power a new central battery that he uses to mass-produce yellow rings. Atrocitus attacks Sinestro to prevent the Yellow Lantern Corps from reigning. The conflict escalates and causes Carol to be able to escape. She begs the Sapphires to help Hal. They are moved by her love for him, so they grant her a violet ring, before then exiting the conflict, but leaving her to be a part of it. Carol helps free Hal. Sinestro's battery has already released dozens of yellow rings across the galaxy, and Sinestro kills Atrocitus while Hal and Carol escape, leading into one final conflict. Back on Oa, the Green Lantern Corps, now joined by the Blue Lanterns and one Star Sapphire, prepare for war. Though the Yellow Lanterns are inexperienced and are outnumbered, the Green Lantern's weakness to yellow, in addition to the fact that while the Yellow Lanterns have no issue killing, the Green Lanterns physically can't, makes the fight more one-sided, and if anything, the Yellow Lanterns have a clear advantage. As the tide turns, the paranoid Guardians authorize a lethal force by rewriting the Book of Oa. Yellow Lanterns start falling, and Sinestro immediately surrenders. He insists he believed in the Corps' mission but wanted to improve it, and this was his plan all along. Hal, however, blinded by rage, doesn't care, and kills Sinestro anyway. As the Yellow Lanterns are defeated, Hal admits to the Guardians that Parallax is still within him. Due to his incredible accomplishments and proving his virtue, he is allowed to remain a Lantern, but is forbidden from ever returning to Oa. John Stewart is appointed the primary Lantern of Sector 2814. Hal and Carol return to Earth, committed both as partners and as heroes. In the post-credit scene, Hal is shown narrating the story to Oliver Queen, revealing that in between Justice League and Green Lantern 3, they became close friends. Later that year, another entry in the DC one-shots would be released, this time setting up a different TV show, DC One-Shot Black Canary, which show us a 1980s set adventure of the original Black Canary, Dinah Drake, before she had a daughter. Those previous one-shots finally get their payoff as Agents of Argus premieres its first of 7 seasons. The show stars John Diggle as he's brought back to life using some sort of advanced technology and is recruited to Argus. We're also introduced to Rick Flag, Johnny Economos, Amelia Harcourt, Felicity Smoke, and Cisco Ramon, who all act as the main characters, serving in a specific unit in Argus. At some point, we learn that Argus is simply a reworked DEO. Cisco becomes Vibe at some point, and the show slowly starts introducing more and more powered individuals. At some point, the show starts to heavily utilize Wildstorm characters like Stormwatch and Gen 13, most notably would be Grifter, but specifically the members of the Authority would not be used here. At one point, the show briefly becomes a Constantine show as DC got the rights to Constantine back, but then he leaves and things basically go back to normal. They did plan a Constantine spin-off of this, but unfortunately it didn't get made and Constantine wasn't seen again. The show lasted from 2013 to 2020. Later that year, Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom opens with a flashback. Arthur once left a scavenger to die, his son, David Hyde. Years later, Manta uncovers and unleashes Kordax, an ancient sorcerer and brother of King Atlan, who once led a cursed kingdom called Necrius. Possessed by Kordax, Manta gains the power to attack Atlantis, spreading the curse and killing Queen Atlanna. Arthur and Mera, who have fallen in love at this point, manage to escape, while Orm, also in the chaos, manages to escape from his captivity. Arthur and Mera decide to regroup in Zebel, where Mera is from, on the way being met by Orm, who pledges his allegiance to save Atlantis. In Zebel, they all meet Calderam, a skilled teen hydromancer, unaware that he is in fact Black Manta's son. The group searches for the Trident of Atlan, the only weapon that once defeated Kordax. Orm sacrifices himself in the trench so Arthur can claim it and gain his full powers. Now able to control marine life, Arthur rallies an army, while Mera and Calder lead that army's charge. Arthur then goes to Black Manta to fight him alone, but begins to lose until he is saved by Orm, who is revealed to actually be alive. Following which, Aqualad also shows up, and Black Manta recognizes him as he looks a lot like his mother, and it's then that he learns that he has a son. That revelation helps Manta break free of Kordax, whose spirit is destroyed by Arthur's trident. The Atlanteans are saved. Manta begs Calder to join him, but is rejected and imprisoned, vowing revenge again. Orm is re-imprisoned, but this time with leniency. Arthur saves Necrius and restores peace to the oceans. The first 2014 release would be a one-shot called Together with Our Hellish Hate, which will tie into Green Lantern 3, focusing on an Earth cat named Dexstar, who is eventually recruited into the Red Lantern Corps by Atrocitus, who is revealed to be alive. This was somewhat made in response to backlash against the early and unceremonious death of Atrocitus in Green Lantern 3, but it also won't be relevant until a movie in 2021 after this entire saga. The Flash, out of time, sees Barry Allen's powers malfunction after battling the Top, sending him to another timeline, where he meets the Flash of that timeline, Wally West, which is Iris's nephew, a relative she doesn't have in our timeline. Wally, struck by lightning as a teen, became a young speedster mocked as Kid Flash, but he refers to himself as the Flash. Barry takes on a mentor role as the two bond and fight Wally's archenemy, a mysterious speedster named Savitar. While trying to return home, Barry visits his alternate timeline loved ones only to discover that they fear and despise him. He learns he does exist here, but something went horribly wrong. In this timeline, the Barry of this world began receiving visions of another life, our main timeline, after Wally gained powers. These visions came from Dr. Alchemy, who used the Philosopher's Stone to grant alternate timeline abilities. Alchemy gave Barry super speed, but in doing so also disfigured him. When Barry lashed out and killed Alchemy, he was rejected by his loved ones. He became Savitar, hiding behind the suit and blaming Wally for stealing his life. Now, Savitar builds a device using the Philosopher's Stone to cross into Barry's original timeline, hoping to replace him and be accepted. Barry and Wally try to stop him, but he succeeds in going over to our timeline, leaving Barry behind. And then he gets his wish. He briefly gains the trust of Barry's family with a false backstory telling them that he was disfigured fighting some villain, but they also soon realize he's not the Barry they know. Barry and Wally manage to use their Speed Force abilities in tandem to power the device, but it's actually too much as it starts merging the timelines together. They then enter the Speed Force for a final battle with Savitar. Barry defeats his dark counterpart and the timeline merging is stopped. Wally returns to his world, remaining its Flash for now. In a post-credit scene, it's revealed that during the chaos, an intelligent gorilla from Wally's timeline has crossed into our world. Justice Society of America introduces this saga's secondary team in an alternate timeline, Timeline B, while the US timeline was Timeline C. The mystical Spectre explains hypertime, which are alternate timelines within one universe shattered by the villain Parallax, who, using his time travel abilities, split Earth's greatest heroes across time and across dimensions to secure his own victory. In a brief flashback, we witness Hal Jordan as Parallax defeating the Spectre, allowing him to then split the JSA off into their own timeline. In this world, the Justice Society of America formed in the 1940s and lasted for decades until around the mid-2000s, when their current members were defeated by the Injustice Society of America. Now, in the present, teenager Courtney Whitmore moves in with her new stepfather, Pat Dugan, once the sidekick Stripesy, to the now-deceased Starman. Courtney discovers the Cosmic Staff, which was used by Starman, but was dormant until it awakened for her, and she becomes Stargirl. Determined to reform the JSA, Courtney recruits Al Rothstein, who is the Atom Smasher, grandson of the original Atom, sparking a flirtatious but slow-building romance. She also inspires Pat to finish his robotic armor, Stripe, and brings Jay Garrick out of retirement. At night, the team investigates the ISA's secret plan, Project New America, which aims to use Brainwave's amplified powers to mind control the United States. While there, they encounter Michael Holt, aka Mr. Terrific, who is independently infiltrating the ISA, believing them responsible for his family's death. The team is overpowered in their first confrontation and are rescued by Dr. Fate, taken to the Tower of Fate. There, Courtney doubts herself, but is encouraged by Pat and the new JSA. As the ISA accelerate their plan, the Spectre then shows up to warn the JSA that they were meant to have help in this battle. Without it, they may and probably will fail. In the final battle, the JSA begins to fall, but moved by their courage, the Spectre defies orders from God and empowers them. Stargirl destroys the device, and the team defeats the ISA. Along the way, Terrific learns that his family's death was actually an accident. The ISA revealed that they avoided killing. They didn't kill the JSA members, the ones that they were able to capture. They wiped their memories and depowered them. As punishment for his interference and going against God's wishes, the Spectre is stripped of his divinity. Now mortal, he is still the Spectre, just a lot less powerful. He joins the JSA for the first time. 2015 is the final year of Phase 2, but also it acts as the beginning to several different TV shows. The first of these is Black Canary, which airs its first of 2 seasons in 2015, with the second being the following year. The first season focuses on, again, the original Black Canary in the 1980s, in her first year as a vigilante, along the way meeting police officer Larry Lance, with whom she falls in love. The second season begins with Dinah and Larry getting married and ends with Dinah getting pregnant. The show was cancelled before the fully intended storyline was told. They wanted to show a story about a superhero balancing her life as a hero with her life as a mother, and lead into the flashbacks in Green Arrow of Dinah beginning to train her daughter. The season's main villains are Clock King and Constantine Draken. A few months later, Netflix would begin what would go on to become known as the Outsider Saga. The first of these shows will be The Atom, focusing on Ray Palmer becoming a hero while struggling with his marriage and work. In Season 1, The Atom faces off against Kronos, another scientist named David Clinton, who also, like The Atom, got his hands on the White Dwarf Star. Ray uses it to manipulate space, while David uses it to manipulate time. In Season 2, in 2016, the early part of the season deals with The Atom being forced to deal with a violent vigilante known as Peacemaker, paralleled by his wife going crazy, cheating on him, and eventually even killing someone. The season then becomes more fantastical as the Atom finds himself stuck in microform, becoming the champion of a microscopic civilization. To save money, the people there just look like people. Finally, Season 3 releases in 2018 and follows up on the Outsiders Saga culmination, which was obviously The Outsiders, which released in between. In Season 3, Kronos returns and allies himself with a psychopath named Silbert Rundin, intentionally turning him into a shrinking villain. The Atom defeats both, and the show ends. Then comes Justice League Doom, which continues the adventures of the DCU's core team. Hal, Barry, Arthur, John, Oliver, and Dinah, now a tight-knit unit and some of them close friends, are joined by the honorary members, which are Jon Stewart, Star Sapphire, Mera, Aqualad, and the newly introduced Roy Harper, Oliver's new sidekick, the Red Arrow. Following the events of The Flash Out of Time, Gorilla Grodd arrived from Timeline C and secretly forms the Legion of Doom, recruiting Black Manta, Count Vertigo, Mirror Master, Dr. Light, Dr. Destiny, Destiny, and scientist Teomaro, who mutates Rex Mason into the Metamorpho, convincing him that they can cure his condition to motivate him. The rest have long-standing grudges with at least one League member. Unrelated to this, the Justice League defeats Amazo, an android created by Anthony Ivo, and stores its tech at the Hall of Justice. During a celebratory party they have, Grodd's Legion attacks, stealing the Amazo parts and escaping through Mirror Master's portals. The Legion then go after more high-tech gear around the world, and while the League tries to stop them, they fail. Dr. Destiny attacks the League psychically, trapping Hal, Barry, and Arthur in nightmare visions. Barry sees Iris mourning him, Hal sees the League dead at his hands, and Arthur sees Atlantis in ruins. Arthur investigates deeper and sees a vision of timelines fracturing, setting up future events. Eventually, Metamorpho defects, aiding the League while Grodd instructs Teomaro to rebuild Amazo into Red Tornado, and Dr. Destiny infects Jean's mind, forcing the League to fight him. Grodd uses the opportunity to escape, and then he enacts his true plan in Africa. Grodd lied to the Legion about his true motives and the use of the device they created. Instead of being a weapon to destroy the Justice League, it empowers thousands of gorillas in a nearby national park, with enhanced intellect and psychic ability, creating a new gorilla nation to replace humanity. The gorillas ravage the park, killing all of its people before leaving to kill people in nearby villages. Grodd obviously knew that the Legion would then turn on him, so he programmed Red Tornado to eliminate the Legion, as they have outlived their use. Tornado kills most of them, Dr. Light, Destiny, Vertigo, Manta, and the Mirror Master being immune to most of their abilities. Tornado's rampage only ends when Martian Manhunter frees his mind. Tornado then turns on Grodd, joining the League as they all team up to fight an army of gorillas. Red Tornado then sacrifices himself to destroy Grodd's device, and the League defeats him. Flash then creates a portal in Timeline C, where he meets Solivar, the leader of Gorilla City, who agrees to imprison Grodd and shelter the gorilla refugees. In the aftermath of these events, Aquaman leaves the team to protect Atlantis. Hal Jordan departs for Oa to seek help from the Guardians in expelling Parallax. John Jones sets out to find other surviving Martians, as it's revealed he saw other Martians alive in his vision. The League sells the Hall of Justice and constructs the Watchtower in space. Now led by the Flash, the new lineup includes Black Canary, Green Arrow, John Stewart, Star Sapphire, Metamorpho, and Red Arrow, though this roster definitely won't last. In the post-credit scene, Hal begins to transform, his eyes glowing yellow and mouth turning monstrous as Parallax begins to take hold. A few months after Justice League Doom, DC releases a smaller, more personal story, Hawkman. We learn that when the timeline fractured, Hawkman's resurrection cycle was disrupted, his soul scattered across hypertime. His last incarnation, Carter Hall of Timeline B, is now reborn in Timeline A as Qatar Hall, a Thanagarian special agent sent to Earth to retrieve lost Nth metal. Qatar traces the metal to an Egyptian tomb where he meets Shiera Sanders, an archaeologist mysteriously drawn there her whole life. When Qatar touches the metal, a shadowy figure escapes, and Qatar receives visions of his past lives, memories that feel like others yet still his own. He begins to feel a deep connection to humanity and a longing for a lost love. Flashbacks reveal the Hawk's origin. In ancient Egypt, Nth metal fell from the sky. Prince Khufu crafted it into armor, weapons, and jewelry for his beloved Shiera, but they were both murdered by the jealous Hathset, who cursed them into endless reincarnation. Due to Parallax shattering the timeline, the Hawks and Hathset were never reborn into the same timelines until now. The shadow that escaped possesses Anton Haster, the latest reincarnation of Hathset, and now becomes the Shadow Thief. Qatar believes Shiera is Shiera reborn, but she resists. She returns to Midway City, where she lives with her husband, police officer George Emmett, joined by his brother Luis, the film's comic relief. Qatar follows, stalling his Thanagarian superiors. When Shadow Thief attacks Midway, the police, including George, are powerless. Shiera intervenes, touches the Nth metal, and awakens as Hawkgirl. Together, she and Qatar repel Shadow Thief, who retreats into the Shadow Realm. As they prepare for his return, Qatar trains Shiera in Thanagarian combat. She now carries memories of past lives but remains loyal to George. Meanwhile, Shadow Thief, realizing killing the Hawks would scatter them again, plans to trap them in the Shadow Realm instead. Meanwhile, the Green Lantern Corps, sensing Thanagarian activity, send John Stewart. But after fighting Qatar, John is convinced that he's no longer really aligned with Thanagar, which Qatar only now realized as well. Shadow Thief returns, now immensely powerful, and begins engulfing standing midway in darkness. In a final battle, George sacrifices himself, giving Qatar the opening to strike Shadow Thief with his mace. Qatar uses the Nth Metal to push them both into the Shadow Realm, with no knowledge of how to get out. Fortunately, the Nth Metal lights up the shadows, destroying Shadow Thief and allowing Qatar to escape. Shayera mourns her husband, but hints remain of a future with Qatar, but not quite yet. Jon Stewart returns, inviting the Hawks to join the Justice League. In an end credit scene, we see a slightly differently dressed Hawkman fleeing a very angry-looking, red-wearing Aquaman, which is definitely in a different timeline, and teasing the next film. Later in 2015, the second Netflix show would air its first of 3 seasons, Vixen. Mari McCabe discovers that she was adopted and is the last survivor of the African tribe of Zambezi. She inherits the Totem of Anansi, which gives her the power to call upon the abilities of any animal. In season 1, she faces off against Aku Kwesi, the warlord who destroyed her village. Then in season 2, Vixen learns of her sister Kuwasa, who is the main villain. Along the way, Mari's best friend, Violet Harper, is injected with a serum that gives her light-based powers. In season 3, she becomes Halo, a vigilante with good intentions, who then goes too far in the name of justice against another villain known as Adrian Chase, aka the Vigilante. Those seasons air in 2018 and 2019 respectively, after Vixen's appearance in the 2017 season of the Team Up series. And that brings us to the end of Phase 2, but things are definitely only now getting started. Phase 2 was a bridging into Phase 3, which is going to be insane. And I'm going to give a bit of a preview for Phase 3 in this movie, honestly because everything cool is in Phase 3, so I wanted to put one thing in this video and not leave everything cool into one video. So I'll end this video with the first movie of Phase 3. Phase 3 launches with a universe-shifting event in the Flashpoint Paradox. Back when the storyline was still fresh, this adaptation acts as a mini Justice League film similar to Captain America Civil War, but with a tighter focus on Barry Allen compared to Captain America Civil War's focus on Captain America. Meaning, it's a little bit less so of a Justice League movie compared to Civil War being an Avengers movie, so to make up for that, a later movie will also include a few more Justice Leaguers that are not included here. Barry awakens in a twisted reality. There's no Green Lantern, his mother is alive, he has no powers, and Iris is married to someone else. Believing he's in Kid Flash's world, he's shocked to learn that Wally is a villain, and Citizen Cold is a hero, the hero of Central City. After learning a bit about this world and having a talk with his mother, Barry then tracks Kid Flash and Citizen Cold down, bearing witness to a final battle that ends with Cold killing Wally, showing his darker side. Cold notices Barry and, looking to silence him, runs after him, but Barry narrowly escapes. Barry then learns of the true horror of this world, a brewing war between the oceans and the skies. Quick flashbacks show that Earth was invaded by Thanagar but was defended primarily by Atlantis. The two civilizations formed a pact that led to peace. Thanagar is ruled by Queen Shayera Thal, who has an affair with Aquaman. When Mera finds out about it, she attacks Shayera but is killed. Driven by grief and anger, Aquaman wages war against Thanagar in his wife's name. Near the beginning of this movie, Queen Shayera sends her top lieutenant, Qatar Hall, after Aquaman in an attempt to assassinate him, but Aquaman kills him. Finally realizing the horrors of this world, a desperate Barry heads to find the only remaining Justice Leaguers who seem to exist on this world for help, Green Arrow and Black Canary. He heads for Star City. In Star City, Barry finds that Green Arrow is not Oliver Queen, but his father, Robert. Together, they set out to restore Barry's powers and form a new league to stop the war between Atlantis and Thanagar. After a failed attempt, they successfully remake Barry's accident, giving him his powers back. They then recruit a few heroes, with Green Arrow's inclusion giving them the confidence they need to form, since he is the world's most famous hero. The new team includes White Canary, a version of Black Canary without her canary cry, Citizen Cold, despite Barry's protests, and Captain Thunder, a US government-based hero who is now turning against the US government, who do not want to work with this Justice League. Seeking more help, specifically Martian Manhunter and Green Lantern, this team break into a secure facility meant to imprison aliens and find an imprisoned Green Lantern, but it's not actually Hal Jordan, it's another guy named Guy Gardner. There's no sign of Martian Manhunter, but they do also meet Subject 1, a weakened, silent Superman who helps them escape before flying off in fear of his own power. Leading into this movie, DC would strike a deal allowing Superman's use in the DCU, while DCU heroes would need to appear in the rebooted Superman movie. This is his DCU debut. He's played by Tyler Hoechlin, who appears physically diminished to match the Flashpoint version. To accomplish this, he did not bulk up for this movie, and they used some practical and CGI effects to enhance the effect. He then does bulk up for his next appearance, which will be pretty soon. All this time, this Justice League is racing against the clock as the war is reaching a boiling point. It takes center stage in Metropolis, leaving devastation as Aquaman and Hawkwoman come to blows and the Atlanteans and Thanagarians brutally kill each other. The newly formed Justice League shows up to break up the fight, but with such small numbers, they don't affect much. As Thanagar begins to win the war, Aquaman approves the activation of Project Tornado, a much more powerful version of Red Tornado that begins to wreak absolute havoc on the Thanagarians, but killing Atlanteans and humans along the way as well. The League fails to stop the devastation as the war rages on and a few of the members die. Superman arrives, but it's too late to save them. Reverse Flash, who has been lurking in the background, reveals himself. Barry blames him, but Thawne explains that it was Barry who did this. Barry then finally remembers what he did. He saved his mother. Thawne explains that Barry's actions created a fractured timeline that broke hypertime, merging elements from multiple realities into one chaotic mess. Barry and Thawne fight as Aquaman finally falls and Thanagar wins, but Red Tornado is unstoppable. His powers begin forming a crack in the Earth itself. Barry tries to go time traveling again to undo his actions, but Thawne loves the irony of Barry causing the end of the world and is content with this being his end as well, so much that he now begins to fight to do anything he can to kill Barry, even if it means that he will die himself, just so that the world can end because of Barry. As Superman mourns the death of the only friend he ever had, which he made in this movie, being Captain Thunder, Barry then lures Thawne right in front of Robert, who shoots him with an arrow. Robert gives Barry a letter meant for Oliver, and Barry goes to share a heartfelt goodbye with his mother before then going to reset the timeline. As Barry runs back to the present, a mysterious voice tells him the timeline was already shattered. Barry will then learn the secrets of his universe. Someone scattered heroes across timelines to weaken them from a strong unit to scattered individuals to secure his victory. The voice tells Barry that this is Barry's greatest chance to restore some of the timeline and set up that villain's defeat. Barry then wakes up in the newly formed timeline, thinks everything is back to normal, but finds out about a few changes. He gets a call from Wally West telling him that the rogues are attacking. Confused, Barry goes to team up with his sidekick, Kid Flash. Upon seeing him, Barry receives a flash of visions from the past of this strange new world. He sees himself meeting Wally and facing off with him against a villain named Cicada, Guy Gardner becoming a Green Lantern after the events of Green Lantern 3, Billy Batson relatively recently becoming Captain Marvel, and the world's greatest hero, Superman, making his debut in the early 2000s. This is the new Prime timeline. Phase 3 is going to be way crazier than phases 1 and 2. Again, subscribe and also turn on notifications so that you can know when that video comes out.